Right, hello guys, welcome back. So in today's video, I want to talk about the DPS implications of the brand new Song of Flame super. Now, you've probably seen Warlocks are doing very good DPS with weapons like Euphony combined with Needlestorm and all other sorts of threadling sources. But today, I'm going to show you a method using Song of Flame that actually does very competitive damage that's even rivaling or doing more than that Euphony rotation that we're all so used to by now. So, as we all know, this super gives you very fast charging grenades, melees, and class abilities, which got me thinking. If you remember back to the launch of Lightfall, we had the Starfire Protocol meta, which if you combined it with Witherhoard would give you insane grenade ability regen, which enabled rockets with the Demolitionist perk to be the dominant heavy weapon damage meta at the time. When it was nerfed, this was no longer the case, and subsequently when it was nerfed is when bait and switch rocket launchers came out, which changed everything. So because Song of Flame gives us very similar grenade regen to that pre-nerf Starfire, I was curious whether we could do the exact same rotation now that we have this super available to us. So I've come to the moon, I've got my rockets, I've got my super. I'm just going to try and see if we can replicate the muscle memory. So let's give it a try, shall we? I'll just pop my super here and we'll do rocket, grenade, rocket, swap to our GL, back here, grenade, rocket, reload, back to our GL, rocket, grenade, rocket, grenade, back to the GL, grenade, rocket, reload, back to the GL, rocket, nade, rocket, and then we have our fusion grenade, and then that's about it. But we do have one rocket left, which we could reload manually, like I just did. But there is a better way of preserving the rotation, which is to use Apotheosis Veil. Because if you guys remember, with the changes to Apotheosis Veil, whenever you finish casting your super, it will give you a brief period of insane ability regeneration for every single one of your abilities. So if we combine that with the end of the Song of Flame super to finish the rest of the rotation, it should look pretty clean. So let's just give that another go. So I'll pop my super, another grenade, GL, grenade, rocket, reload, GL, rocket, nade, rocket, nade, GL, nade, rocket, and reload, back to GL, rocket, nade, rocket, nade, GL. There we go. We can finish it properly with Apotheosis Veil, and we'll still have more grenades to use afterwards, which specifically if we combine with Touch of Flame will do a lot of damage. Also, I will admit that the rotation does look fairly complicated, but there is one trick for you to help remember the muscle memory, is basically after every second grenade that you throw is when you swap to your other weapon to sort of wait out the Demolitionist timer. So basically, I'll demonstrate that here. We pop super, we do rocket, nade, rocket, nade. That was the second grenade. We then swap away Witherhoard, then nade back, and that is enough time to come back to finish the demo cooldown. So we'll just do one more time. So we'll do rocket, nade, nade, demo cooldown is happening, swap to Witherhoard, and then back, and then it's gone. There we go. So that basically resets the cycle. I also want to point out that at that point in the rotation is when you will have to manually reload the rocket, because if you keep relying on demo, it becomes out of sync, and you basically just want to hard reset it with a manual reload. So essentially, a full cycle of this rotation looks like this. So I'll pop my super, we'll do rocket, nade, then we'll go back to Witherhoard, nade, rocket, then we'll manually reload it here, and that's one cycle complete. We'll then go back to rocket, nade, Witherhoard, then nade, then rocket, then manually reload, and then we're back to the starting cycle again. It is a lot to sort of process, but it'll just take you some time to get used to it. So if I put the clips side by side of my old solo Nezarec and the current rotation, they basically look identical. The muscle memory is the same. I'm actually quite surprised that I still even remembered it, because this was from over a year ago. But yeah, they are essentially the same thing, and the damage is the only thing that's kind of up in the air. So why don't we just go and have a look and see how much damage this combo does. Specifically for this combo, I'm going to be using a double special setup, which is the Mountaintop, Still Hunt, and a Apex Predator. The Apex Predator is slightly different to what you're used to. I'm going to be using the Explosive Light perk because it just reduces the hassle from having to proc bait and switch on Apex if that's the other perk you were wanting. The difference now between Explosive Light and bait and switch is very minimal. Bait and switch is a 30% buff and Explosive Light is 25, so that 5% difference really isn't that big of a deal, but this is just what I'm going in with to start with. So yeah, just to recap, we have a Mountaintop with autoloading recombination, Still Hunt, a Apex Predator, and Apotheosis Veil with Touch of Flame fusion grenades and Helion. This is just to give us a little bit more damage whenever we cast our class ability, because I did do some testing on the Helion, and it is worth around 300,000 damage or so if you do it over the whole phase, so it's just a little bit of a cherry on top. The only other thing worth noting is that I do have Ember of Ashes on to make it so that I get more frequent ignitions, because this increases the amount of Scorch we apply by about 50%, so it's just going to give us more ignitions, which means more damage overall. So yeah, 3.4 million without a debuff is pretty impressive. Not to mention the boss staggers very often, which for bosses like the Herald of Finality, for example, who erratically teleports around, is a very nice way of locking them in place. Though I do hear some of you saying that because this is a double special setup that you have to sort of carefully set up, it's not very worth running in the pre-DPS phase, because how are you going to clear ads? And to that, I do have a solution. There is another way of doing this rotation, which is to have a primary, and then you can also use Witherhoard in the top slot to get very similar damage as you're about to see. Yeah, I mean, it's a little scuffed at the end, but I think it's looked about the same. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is slightly less. So yeah, 3.3 million is basically the same as the previous rotation, and this time you get to run a primary weapon. However, if you are willing to run double special, such as running a rocket sidearm in your top slot and then swapping to mountaintop for damage, that in the long run is going to be better, because if you are able to use Still Hunt in your second slot, this is going to raise your total damage by quite a significant margin, especially in boss fights that are longer than 30 seconds, like the Witness fight, for example. The Witness is around a 45-second DPS phase, and by the time that we're finished with all of our rockets, we can still do the rest of the Still Hunt rotation and still do very competitive damage. But if that's not something you're comfortable with, you can of course still do the Witherhoard rotation, and your damage will still be very good. Also, for those of you wondering why I didn't test bait and switch, I actually did, but the results are actually somewhat worse. I did hit a clean rotation, but that only resulted in around 3.1 million, which was slightly less than both the Witherhoard and Still Hunt variants with explosive light. So, you know, it's not really worth it. It's just a lot of hassle to proc bait and switch, and me personally, on fights like the Witness, I would much rather have a damage perk that is a lot easier to proc and is more reliable than bait and switch. I did also try it with Prismatic Warlock, though unfortunately the results aren't quite the same. The weird thing with Prismatic Warlock, specifically with Song of Flame, is that the grenade has a different charge rate than it does on Solar for some reason. It feels like it has a sort of inbuilt cooldown. It comes back way faster on Solar than it does on Prismatic for some reason, so I don't know why that is. It just makes the rotation feel a lot more clunky. I suppose it might be better if you have the ultimate class item combo of Star Eaters with Apotheosis, though unfortunately I do not, so I was not able to test it. Though if anyone does have that and wants to copy this rotation, do let me know if they hit a higher number than 3.4 million. And also, Prismatic does not get fragments like Ember of Ashes to increase the amount of ignitions that we trigger, so overall it will be slightly less damage than that. Solar Warlock is still very good on its own, so definitely don't disregard this just because it's not on Prismatic and is not like the most recent hype thing. So yeah, that's basically the whole gist of the damage build. I will have a dim link in the description for those of you who just want to copy it. It's really just a bunch of loaders, dexterities, and targeting, surges, things like that, you know, what you would use on a damage loadout, but I'll just leave it in case you just want to copy it hassle-free. And then finally, if you guys actually wanted to see a practical example of this build, this next clip is me using it in a Witness CP, and I'll let you judge the damage for yourself. Anyway guys, thanks for watching the video, enjoy the clip, and I'll see you in the next one. Ooh, not bad at all. 5.3.
4.5, that was
Oh, we out DPS'd.
I got the Euphony.
We out DPS'd the Euphony.
Finally.
Oh, good shit.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Oh shit, did you get Euphony?
Yep.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
If you made it this far, thank you so much. Your support means the world. And if you're really into the content I create, consider becoming a member of the channel, which not only lets you support me in the best way possible, it also nets you a whole host of awesome perks along with it. A massive shout out to these members up on screen, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewer.